Welcome to another Leon Charney report, and we are talking to you directly from Tel Aviv, Israel. It's a pretty nice day. It's sunny. It's about 85 degrees, and you should really be on the beach. People here are doing that. They're going on the beach. If you recall, about 4 months ago when I was in Israel, I interviewed this great lady called Colonel Miri. Great because she was illuminating and elucidating exactly what they had found, the Israeli army, when they raided the compound of Yasser Arafat. And she gave us all those documents, a lot of them anyway. We talked about it and we filmed it, and we talked about Miri. And now she's back with us, and she's still a colonel in the IDF, and but she's become a little bit of a media star. So we're glad we have her, and she'll fill us in a little bit about what's going on, because things have been a little bit better, just a little bit better. There's a plan on the map now called Gaza first, and which may extend to Ramallah, and we'll talk about that with Miri. Miri, welcome.
It's very nice to be here.
So, are we a little bit better off than we were? Well, I think it was about April when we were here, correct?
In April, we were in the midst of an operation, which at the time we really didn't know how it would end, Operation Defensive Shield. Since then, we've actually been in a series of operations where the forces of the Israel Defense Forces are inside Palestinian cities. And I always am very wary about saying things, but at the moment it does seem to be a bit better. What that means is that the Israel Defense Forces, by going into these cities, has managed to make security a little bit more secure in Israeli cities. Doesn't mean that things can't happen in any given moment. But one of the things that Israeli society has shown is that we have stamina. And that stamina is starting to show on the Palestinian side. The fact that we have a backbone and that we're willing to last this out and that we're not going anywhere is really starting to make a difference. The idea of Gaza and the city of Bethlehem, where the Church of the Nativity is, of the two of them first, Bethlehem has already started. And that means that for the first time for over a year, the security forces of the Palestinians, one of the security organizations, is starting to act in the city of Bethlehem. They're starting to take responsibility, which is what we had demanded the entire time. In the Gaza Strip, other security organizations are starting to take responsibility. For us, that means that they are responsible for the security, for there not being terrorism in the Palestinian Authority or against Israel and Israel proper.
You know, I've been in Israel a lot, many times. I've been involved with peace process, etc. Sometimes it's physics. You have to go down very low, and then it starts to percolate up. I think the Israeli society is learning somehow that something has to happen, because the future must involve, I guess, some kind of compromise someplace. Otherwise, this just living with never understanding where the end is very difficult. I know that the Army and the Defense Forces have a lot of people drawing papers up on that. You know, in the United States, people don't know any answers. They see one, they see the left wing, the right wing, they see the center, they don't know where it's going. I have to tell you that I've been reading a lot and seeing a lot about papers that are being written by the Israeli Defense Forces, and they're very impressive. And they give a lot of hope for the future of Israel. I mean, politically, they're going to be tough, obviously, but I have to say that, because if you sit in New York, you don't hear anything good. People just waffling around and thinking God knows the world's coming to an end, and tourists don't come here, and people say it's dangerous to walk on the street. Well, I've been here for 3 weeks, thank God, and you know, it's been pretty good. And the beach has been pretty nice to me, and things are working. But what I sense is that there's a yearning here to do something, to change things that have happened. Now, I don't know how far you can go because you're in the military, but there are planners in the military who come up with concepts that make this place compatible with a general life. And I think we have to portray that to the public, because they don't know anything about it. So you tell me how far you can go with that without disclosing things which you should not talk about, which I have no doubt you wouldn't anyway.
I'll try.
That was a long question, but...
We have a saying in the IDF, in the Israel Defense Forces, that if anybody knows the solution to the problem, they should stand up. And nobody stands up, because nobody thinks that there's one solution. But what we do have in this situation, in our terms, the military terms, is to let there be very obvious facts about what does have to happen. One thing which I think is the big change which has happened, which is why I think we said that it's a little bit better, is the fact that we are not going to let terrorism win. And we've shown that. And in military terms, we are showing terrorism. The terrorism is something that you can combat. You can't stop it completely. You can never subdue it completely. But you can do a lot of very active things against terrorists, terrorist organizations, their weapons, what they're trying to perpetrate all of the time. The other aspect is that we are trying to look and see what are the different options. We see it in the intelligence terms of the Palestinian people, the Palestinian leadership, the countries around us, and what we can do. As you mentioned yourself, there are two sides here. There's the Israelis and there's the Palestinians. I think that we are beyond the stage of denying that. And the question is, okay, there are two parties here. Let's try and think what we can do. And the different options at the end are political. But what we do try to address are the different options. The government will decide whatever the government decides, and we, the Israel Defense Forces, will do whatever our democratic government decides. We do try to bring up different ideas, which aren't political. They're based on the security ideas of what will influence or not influence the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people at the end sitting there are the ones who voted in Yasser Arafat, who at the moment have become extremely violent as a society. How do we influence them? How do we find a common voice? I try to address it on the level of a mother. How do I, as a mother, find the voice of the Palestinian mother so that at the end we have something in common? As long as Palestinian mothers send their kids to commit suicide, I don't think we're going to find common ground. But we're seeing less of that. We're starting to see the fact that families are not condoning their children committing suicide. They're starting to understand that there's not only a price, but that at the end, this is something which is against both their own law and any type of human ideas. And I think that here we may start finding the common ground.
You know, last time we were here, you talked about this treasurer who was signing all the checks for Arafat. I forgot his name.
Fuad Shubaki.
He's in jail now, is that correct?
He's in jail in Jericho. I saw an interview with him yesterday in the Jerusalem Post.
So did I.
I found that interesting because that is completely against any of the rules that were put down when they're in jail. People in jail are not supposed to give interviews.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's a side issue at the moment. The interview is already out. Certainly the journalist wanted to get the interview. But he, in jail, in Jericho, still from there even, tries to continue to run some of those aspects which we had spoken about last time of smuggling arms. Just yesterday and today, we're in the midst of something that we're not sure if it was an arms smuggling through the sea off the Gaza Strip coast. And these are different issues that still continue. And it has to do with the heads.
Who are the jailers there now? Who watches those jails?
It's a combination. It's inside a Palestinian jail.
Right.
And the jailers themselves are British and American.
Soldiers or...
I call them intelligence personnel.
Intelligence.
Where it was part of the... When Yasser Arafat was allowed to leave the compound at the end of April last year, which is a bit before when you were here at the time, part of that was the fact that both Fuad Shubaki, as the chief smuggler, and as I mentioned, he's the financial advisor to Yasser Arafat, and the assassins of Rehavam Ze'evi, Israel's tourism minister, until he was assassinated a year and a half ago, that all of them would be put in jail, and they were put in jail. And all of them, sadly, from their jail, continue to, at least through phones, continue to do a lot of activity.
And they're allowed to have cell phones in the jails?
They're not supposed to.
Who put down the law there, by the way? That was an agreement made between whom?
It was a quiet agreement that was done at the time between the Palestinians and the negotiators, because the whole effect was that Yasser Arafat would be let out of the compound. That was the final end of the agreement itself. So it was people from Yasser Arafat, together with a combination of some of the foreigners who were here, the British and the American here.
What is the present situation now of Arafat on the compound? Is he surrounded by Israeli troops?
He's surrounded, but he could leave the compound itself within Ramallah, but he can't go out further than that, as in through the different cities. The negotiation process about Bethlehem and the Gaza Strip have been done with people who are his close advisors. Saeb Erekat is the one who is more known, certainly for the American audience. He's one of the chief negotiators.
Let's not do commercials, that guy. He's on every time you look at a TV show. Probably be selling cigars next year.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the person himself, the words, he has a very strong rhetoric, which I have a very strong problem with, because it doesn't have anything to do with reality. It has to do with what he wants to say. But that's one of the negotiators, and he's certainly one of their chief people.
What is the position of the IDF concerning Arafat's compound today?
Well, for us, we do what the government tells us in the compound itself. He's in the compound and he can go around in Ramallah itself. We're physically not in the compound as we were in the past. We're on the outskirts of the compound itself.
You can't go water skiing.
I don't know if he'd want to go water skiing. I don't think he could go skiing either. But he can't go out around the world as he's always been used to. Yet again, he is more or less only in his areas. What we have started and initiated now is the fact that the forces that were in Bethlehem have been evacuated completely. We're not sitting within the city of Bethlehem, and we're not within the Gaza Strip, or at least all of the different portions that we had been in before. But aside from that, in the other Palestinian cities of Judea and Samaria, we're still sitting as a military. And that's many cities. That's an additional 6 cities.
How's the morale in the Army? I mean, we read stuff in the United States, reservists don't want to serve, you know these stories. Is that a big deal in the Army today?
It's not a big deal. It's gotten a lot of publicity, which really has nothing to do with what actually happens in Israel. There are 2 separate issues with the reservists here. The one issue, which is a non-issue in Israel, even though it got a lot of publicity in the States, is the issue of not willing to serve in Judea and Samaria. That's not an issue in Israel at all. It's only publicists and it's politics, and those people went to the States because nobody wanted to listen to them here. And that's not an issue at all. The reservists are coming and they're working. The reservists themselves have brought up a different issue, which is an economic one, and it has to do with inner Israeli politics. And it's more on the issue of benefits, who does reserves and who doesn't do reserves in Israel, and not on the political background of actually doing it in Judea and Samaria. Because here they came and they say, how is it that not all Israelis participate in what at the end is a very harsh reality of doing 40 days a year in reserve duty? And all of the ultra-Orthodox, the ultra-religious don't participate in that at all, and there were a lot of issues because of that.
There was one of the Palestinian officials who was in jail and was escorted or got out to London the other day, and one of Arafat's henchmen. Mm-hmm. Is that a great intelligence find for the Israeli Defense Forces?
Certainly any one of these people, when we can get to them and interrogate them, give us an immense amount of information. In April, I spoke to you about documents, because
right.
At the time we had taken archives and we were looking through the documents.
Right.
But I'd say that now in August, we're a lot more smart, I'd call that, because of the interrogations. We've arrested, at this stage along the way, thousands of Palestinian terrorists, including around 300 top terrorists. I'm talking about the ones who recruit other people, who know how to find the weapons, who get the money, who think out what the targets are going to be. And that interrogation has given us an immense amount of information, which is one of the reasons that right now it's a little bit better. Through the interrogations, through the archives, we've really managed to clamp down on all of the top terrorists, on a lot of the middle ones, and it takes them a while until they can renew themselves.
You told me last time that there was a treasure trove of papers. Have you gone through all of them? Have you been able to get, or it's just impossible?
It's just impossible. What we're doing now is a little bit different, because we have a hangar, physically it's a hangar, full of documents.
Really?
And we've cataloged it, sort of like you do in a library, meaning we haven't read every single document, but we've cataloged what we have with it. This is a file taken from the general intelligence, this is a file taken from the general security, and so on and so forth. And now we ask questions, and what we're really doing at this stage is saying, we'd be interested in knowing what, for example, the general intelligence was doing against terrorists in 1999, and then we go back and look specifically at those issues. Right now, I'd say that one of the main issues that we're interested in, for example, is the involvement of both Syria and Iran in terrorism in the Palestinian Authority. And we started looking through the documents, and lo and behold, when you ask a question, you find the answers. And those are new issues that we hope to come out with in a short time.
Miri, always a pleasure.
Thank you very much.